launch him 80
You
feet
told
in
me
the air.
to boat flip him!
I didn't tell you to launch him 78
I
feet in
flipped
the
him
air.
in the boat, didn't I?
Send it to the moon.
I sent it! You said boat flip him!
Oh, yeah.
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never disappointed out here. Because I don't expect anything. Because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure. Because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
On my property, you didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Monday Night Live. Here we are, August 12th, man, into the dog days of summer. And the bass fishing, usually for the green ones, it's a little slow right now. Most of the brown ones are about under 10,000 feet of water because of the flooding, so you're flipping the foundation, so you can't catch those. But we have snakehead that are able to bite, and that's what's so cool about our area is you have the seasonal patterns. And I remember when I used to go down to the Keys, and they would always have this little calendar up there to tell you at the bait shop like what's running. And what's nice about our area, there's always something that you can catch right now. And I got a guy on that we're going to be talking about things from racing cars and motorcycles to catching snakeheads, fishing glide baits. It's going to be a really, really fun conversation. Something just to kind of go on the other end of the spectrum is Nate. We have a really, really important angler for NVKBA. His house burnt down, and I'm going to put a little fundraiser actually in the chat right here if you'd like to donate. He's a really good guy that just came across my page. I'm going to say like an hour ago, I just came across this. So I'm just going to put the link right into the chat so everyone can see that. If you'd like to donate to that, that would be awesome. If not, just share it out. Even just sharing it, get the word out there is really, really big. How do I sound, everyone, before I kind of get going here? And we have a lot to talk about too, about news-wise. Bassmasters just finished up at Lake Champlain. The dude almost died because he hit a floating dock because it got cut off from the freaking shore because of the storms. The St. Lawrence River already saw his first massive tournament, and then you have the Bassmasters going right back up there. And then Jacob Wheeler has won, 3 or 4 Angler of the Year titles, it feels like, in a row. At what point do we just say he's better than Kevin Van Dam, or he's getting up there? When it just comes from pure winnings. And I get it, like you have Patrick Walters, people like that, but what Jacob Wheeler is doing is nuts. But that's neither here nor there. That's for another show. Guys, without further ado, James Hall, aka Jimbo Slice, the man, the myth, the legend. Sir, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
I appreciate you having me, Thomas. There's a whole bunch of other people you could have had on here, but you chose me. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, dude, you're cutting yourself short, man. Like, the reason we're late is we just started to get into conversation right away, which was just fascinating hearing kind of your story. And you're right, like, people really just, bass fishing becomes like the biggest focal point. It really is because of the tournament aspect of it. It drives the numbers. But there's so many other things that you can do. I look at so many guys that do the snakehead tournaments, and then they're red fishing, speckled trout fishing. They're getting that, and that just gets me this antsy. Like, I really want to go out to the Eastern Shore or down to the bay and just go kayaking, just because like I miss that. But we get lost in the tournament hustle and bustle of where the pros are going next, and it is sad in one sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, to be honest with you, during that tournament season, this is my first rookie season, so pretty much from April to the last event in July, I just pretty much fished the tournament waters in Virginia just to figure it out. and I didn't really fish anything else. A couple of my buddies live up in West Virginia who do a lot of smallmouth fishing. They're like, come out, man. I was like, I really need to go out to the Potomac to figure out these waters. I got a lot of money invested into this. I really need to try to figure this out. But yeah, after the season's done, it's free game. I mean, there's so much stuff to fish around it. There's ponds to be fished. I mean, where I'm at in Dulles, I'm not gonna say exactly where, but Dulles, there's probably at least 12 ponds in a 4 or 5 mile radius that I could go fish. Half of them I could put my kayak in. Fortunately, they stock them easily with 4 or 5 pound bass. I mean, those aren't like trophy fish, but I mean, those are good fish for ponds, you know? So, you know, and then once you start getting out to the East Coast with the saltwater stuff, I mean, that's just another level. There's just so much stuff to do out here.
That's something that's on my plan in 2025 because I have so much time is to start incorporating more saltwater because we have the whole bay, for God's sakes. It's so much water.
Yeah. It's expansive out there, especially down you get to Virginia Beach, you know, towards Rappahannock, the stuff down there towards the end of that area. I mean, it's so vast. Fortunately, I live in Dulles, which is even further away to get, you know, drive to, but you know, at some point you got to make that commitment. So, but I'm definitely game for that at some point.
How did you get into fishing?
So I got into fishing. So my mother, she's from Hawaii. My dad, he's from Oklahoma. And, you know, as a kid, a couple of my cousins, you know, were in Virginia Beach. So we would always just go fishing down there, you know, during the pier or Solomon Islands off the pier. There's a military base on there. So I've always been around fishing, especially when we flew back to Hawaii. We always go fishing in the beach. So I've always been around fishing, but just, you know, growing up, there's just all these other aspects of life but fishing was just never a priority for my family or anything like that, especially when we were in this area. So fast forward, I would say, 2008, gosh, you know, you're dating my age here, but if I'm not sure if you're familiar, but kayak bass fishing used to be a form, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you. Yeah.
So I used to get on that forum a long time ago, and it had, you know, catch, you know, where you catch fish, you know, fishing reports. It had divisions of like all over the country, Mid-Atlantic, South, North, everything like that. So I would just get on that and, you know, figure out how to fish off the bank because everybody started fishing the bank. I think I started at Beaver Dam Reservoir when I moved into this area, and I would get snagged up and stuff like that, or on the Potomac. So that's when I found that form, and then I ended up picking up a Coleman fishing kayak from Dick's Sporting Goods, and then I would just take that to the Beaver Dam Reservoir and fish that. But again, this was back in like 2008, 2009 or something like that. Fishing kayaks weren't even a thing at that time. They were just kayaks that people just kind of rigged up for fishing kayaks, you know. And at the time, I think it was the Wilderness tarpons were the kayaks to have at that time. So that's kind of where I started at, you know, just do that form. And then I just kind of reached out and learned other different clubs in the area. I think it was Potomac River Smallmouth Club was big back then. So I would go there, and to be honest, I was the youngest guy going into that place in my early 20s. But I learned a lot from them. Jeff Little, he was a big influence for me in this area. Him and Chad Hoover were big pioneers of kayak fishing, kayaks in itself back then. So, you know, couple more years, I think they had released the Ride 115, and like that was like the new fishing kayak for a solo person. It was 10 foot, and I had just broken my collarbone a year earlier, so transporting a kayak was kind of hard. So I needed something that was kind of light, and that kind of actually fit the bill. And it was fishing; you could stand on it. So I had that for a couple of years. And then I ended up selling my house. And the house I had a garage. So I had to downsize, and I ended up just selling all that.
Mm.
And I ended up keeping my rods, my reels, a lot of my lures at the time. But the one thing that really stuck around when I was doing that form at the time was the snakehead stuff. It was so very rare that you would see posts about people catching snakeheads. It was just so rare, but it just fascinated me because I was like, man, look at those things, they're like right here. So when I got rid of my kayak, I knew I marked down like these spots all over the map where I saw these guys catching snakeheads back in like 2010. And I knew at some point when I'd get back into kayak fishing, I would, get back into snakehead fishing because that's always been an interest of mine. It always looked really fun, really challenging, other than just bass fishing. So I'd probably say about 2 years ago, no, I'd probably say around COVID, the racing scene kind of dying down for me a little bit. You really couldn't get out. So as far as everything was locked down, so I just started picking fishing back up a little bit. My buddy had a John boat. We were going to the res a bunch. So of course I'm back on YouTube, tactical bass and trying to figure out all this stuff. You could see my garage. I used to make, I still make lures. I got terminal tackle. I got so much lures from them and stuff like that. But I was just learning how to bass fish again after all those years of hiatus. But I knew snakehead, like I wanted to get back in the snakehead because I saw him in the res, like when I was back there fishing with my buddy, and I was like, I got to get back into it. So Memorial Day came around maybe about last year. Dick's Sporting Goods, I picked up a Vibe Sea Ghost 110, and that's where it started. And just when I knew they were in Potomac, like down Stafford area, so I just kind of actually, it's actually funny. I actually sold a swim bait rod to a guy on Facebook, and we were actually talking about fishing, and he was like, hey, I'm about to go snakehead fishing. And again, I had just bought this kayak maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before, and I was like, dude, can I go with you? And he was like, sure, man. And he actually took me. And he took me down to Crow's Nest. And that day, dude, I caught a 28-inch snakehead, and I was hooked. I was hooked after that. And ever since then, I've just been addicted to snakehead fishing.
It's crazy how we have that moment, right? We can always remember that moment where like it clicks and the addiction sets in.
Oh, I do. I'll never forget that day. I remember exactly where I was at, how I was fishing, how it struck, how it missed it the first time, everything. It was just unbelievable. I mean, and again, once you set that hook in that fight and how they fight you, and then that's just one aspect of it. Getting it to the net, getting in the net is another aspect of it. Getting it into the kayak, getting the lure out of its mouth with, your first time out, not even know what the hell this thing is, not even have the right tools. I mean, it's a daunting task, but like once you're done, man, you're just like, oh my God, you're full adrenaline. I mean, it's almost like hunting. If you talk to a lot of people, it's almost like hunting. So it's unbelievable.
And when you combine the topwater explosion, the drag screaming, and then also that they are good to eat, they actually do taste good, and that's such a weird combo. And then again, it's something I brought up on other shows with other guests is the sex appeal of the fish with the coloration is cool. The way they look is cool. A trophy fish is called a dragon. Like you can't pay for that kind of press coverage to get that kind of cool name like that.
No, not at all. Nah.
Now, something else I wanted to bring up though was race cars and driving. And is that how you broke your collarbone?
That was actually snowboarding.
Oh, okay.
Snowboarding in a terrain park, trying to, do stuff I shouldn't be doing, and just landed wrong on the collarbone and just snapped it. Yeah, that was an epic 10 weeks in itself. But
oh my God. Ugh.
Yeah, unfortunately with collarbones, it's you got two options. It's either let it heal by itself or surgery. Unfortunately, I had to have surgery. So I had a metal pin in me and all that good stuff. But, that was a long time ago, but no issues anymore. I could lift my arm and fish and kayak, no problem anymore. So we're good there.
So, like again, I don't know a lot of people that race as a passion, and how does one stumble into that? It's almost as fascinating as how you stumble into fishing in Northern Virginia.
I've always been into cars. Growing up traveling, we used to do a lot of road trips, and I used to be fascinated with like 18-wheelers, stuff like that. And old Mustangs and Camaros, stuff like that. So I've always just been into cars. And as soon as I turned 16, I just got my license and just got a car. My dad helped me get my first Honda. It was a Honda and like Acura Integra. I put a whole bunch of money into that thing. Tried to go to the, I didn't try, but I went to the racetrack or MIR, ran like a 16-second quarter mile with all this money put into it, which is, nothing at all. And then I realized like, I got to go faster. So ended up getting into motorcycles. I sold the car for whatever, and then bought a motorcycle for super inexpensive and was able to run a 12-second quarter mile with just straps and the dog bones on a stock 750 GSXR. So I was hooked on that speed from going from a 16-second quarter mile to like a 12-second quarter mile. So that's just how I got into the racing. Just the passion of cars and stuff, like friends, high school, everything of that. Get back to the street racing and stuff like that. But
where do you race around here? Is that you have to travel pretty far? Are you going up to Summit Point then in West Virginia, or where do you go?
So back when I was earlier, that was just straight drag racing. So that was through MIR or Rockingham, North Carolina. So now I'm into rally, like stage rally and rally cross, and that's more. The rally cross is a Washington D.C. division, SCCA. So you could do that's Summit Point in Panthera, West Virginia. That's Moorfield, West Virginia. It's like a training facility out there. So we have a big open field where we can make a track and race over there. So that's where that venue is. For stage rally, we go pretty much all over the country, or that's all over the country. But for the most part, the guys who I race with are on the eastern side or eastern division. So we'll go up to New England, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Pennsylvania, stuff like that. But yeah, racing stuff, that's just fun in itself. But again, now I'm just more into the crew side of it, where I turn the wrench. I'm a crew chief for one of the stage rally teams, a private team in this area. So that's just been fun, just keeping that car on the track and keeping them, running and stuff like that. But
that's got to be high stress though, right?
A little bit. But fortunately, the guy who I race with, he is very meticulous with his car. He builds his car really well. So I don't really have to worry about it. As long as he keeps the car on the road, the car is great. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm not really in the car seat anymore, and I'm not in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat doing the co-drive. So it's not too much stressful. But yeah, if they wreck and you have to drive out a couple miles to go get them, and you're in the middle of like New England, you've never been there.
Oh God.
Yeah, that could be a little stressful because there's no service also. So yeah, so you have to use your maps to try to figure out where they're at and everything like that. But after a while, you get used to it. It's fun for me. I love doing that stuff.
An interesting analogy that I've used before is with at least NASCAR. Everything to an extent, you're on equal playing field. The engine, everything, so you can't get so much of an advantage over your competitors. And when you look at fishing, whether it is the kayak world or bass and stuff, is that something that would benefit the fishing world, I guess, to have that kind of like, hey, listen, you can't have an engine that's this big because it gives you way too much of an advantage. Everyone has to have like an even playing field. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Like, what are your thoughts since you've been in both worlds, so to speak?
So when you talk about motors for kayaks, again, I'm not on the bass side, but for the kayak, for the snakehead stuff,
yeah,
you have a motor, you're not going to win a podium by any means, but it allows you to cover more water. So that's a good thing. I don't think that should be regulated too much.
I guess the technology thing, I guess, like not just the motors, but it seemed like for NASCAR and certain racing, like they do have limits on like this is where you guys are allowed to operate with your vehicle versus kayaking and bass. It's like the Wild West.
Unfortunately, yeah, it kind of is. Unfortunately, this is my first year of tournament fishing. Would I have advantage of it, or would I've done better in my rookie season? I don't think so, but I mean, I guess I'm kind of still new to that. So I guess next question.
No. It's just because like, okay, let me rephrase it this way. In racing, in the thing that you raced, did they have limitations on everything, or is it basically you can?
Of course, yeah, we have certain classes and everything like that. Yeah, definitely.
So it's classes. I didn't know that. Cool. So it's like,
oh yes, you have front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, non-turbo, turbo. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the turbo cars are going to murder the non-turbo cars. Well, I'm not saying all the time, but for the most part, yeah, there's definitely restrictions on classes and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's cool. I didn't know that because I know like in the crappie world, I guess the comparison would be they have like forward facing versus non-forward facing leagues, and you could have those. That's interesting, actually. Huh.
Yeah. So for the basic stuff, what I did for the rallycross, there was pretty much three classes. There was like a stock class, there was a prep class, and then there was like an unlimited. So stock is pretty much if you run anything stock, change out the tires. Prep, you could do a few things: suspension, a few motor mods, wheels and tires, just basic stuff. And then you got unlimited, you can do unlimited. So yeah, you're pretty much racing in your class. And obviously, the more experienced you are, you can kind of step up in your class. And some experienced guys will stay into the lower classes and dominate, which is fine because they just know how to drive too. So it's more about just building your car. It's a lot of seat time too. It's a lot of seat time and fishing time on the water. It's really key.
The last racing question is, how fast have you gone?
I mean, like legally or on the track? I mean,
yeah, as long as statute of limitation, we don't need that. But
I mean, I think I've looked down on a speedometer and said 143. But I've definitely been faster than on some of these exotic cars that some of these guys have just been stupid about. But that's just another topic itself. But
that's got to be. I've heard people say that there's a feeling when you do that cannot be matched in the world. That's why people get addicted to it.
Oh, it's tunnel vision. It's a total tunnel vision. Total tunnel vision when you're out there on the streets. It's it's insane. It's insane.
So I don't know how you go from that kind of adrenaline rush. Like that's just so cool. Is going from that to snakehead fishing or any fishing. Like, does it match does it actually scratch the itch like that? Because good God, I don't know. But I haven't raced before, so.
Well, again, at that time, I was just doing bass fishing just to have fun. Yeah. So it was just something to get away from. And I've always loved fishing. So it's just fun to me. That's why when we talk about tournament bass fishing, it's never really like hit that niche for me because I just love fishing. And I always want to fish from like till I die. And that's the thing about fishing. You could fish from a very small age to you're older, with racing, other sports, man, you could tire out really quick, or you could get too old to run or play certain sports and stuff like that. But fishing, I always want to fish, so I just want to kind of keep it fun as long as I can. And that's there's a big kind of dichotomy of tournament fishing. You can't kind of keep it fun. There's a certain point where you got to get serious and you really got to step it up. And there's been that line that I've been kind of, teetering this season of like, man, I want this to be fun. But again, you've got some money invested. You got to be serious about this. So yeah, that's been a learning curve in itself right there. But
I'm glad you brought that up though, because when you get into tournament fishing hard, and this is where you see the guys that do great in practice, like, I caught 30 pounds, or I did really good. I caught 2 or 3 like over 30-inch snakes. And it's like, great, but then you go to tournament day and where are they? And it's because the people that practice well, they're not out there to have fun or catch fish. It's about practicing. And I
No.
don't think a lot of people, as I've matured and gotten older and gotten to be in the boats with some really good sticks, like it's a job in practice. You're not sticking fish. You're moving around. You're getting things scoped out. And I don't think a lot of people understand that.
No, not at all. Yeah, like again, you had Steven on your channel a few days ago. He's released some really good footage of how to search and stuff like that. And that played a key in my first event. But yeah, you really got to put the time in to learn and to get out there, if that makes sense. I mean, you can only watch so many YouTube videos and get on Facebook and try to spot burn as much as possible, but you really got to go and skunk out. And then this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with motors. So I'm only paddling. So again, when we started from back 2008, like there were no motors for kayaks. So it was all paddling. So a couple of years ago, I was like, no, I'm gonna just paddle everywhere I go. I'm a purist. I learned real quick that paddling is only going to get you so far. So again, with this tournament season, I could only go so far with the paddle in pre-fish and stuff like that safely, I should say. Sure, you could paddle at maybe 2 miles on a current, on an outgoing tide, but if that weather switches you're short. You're not going to paddle back. Like, is it worth that for fishing that one day? So there's a limit of how far you could go with a paddle and how you could go with a motor too. Not saying that you could stick right here by a marina and win something also, because it's definitely been done. But having the ability to get out further and explore definitely broadens your knowledge and your area of fishing, and knowing more bodies of water, and just the knowledge of getting out and seeing more bodies of water. And that's kind of the one thing. We're in Dulles. I live so far from Stafford. There's so many Burke Lake has snakehead. The Res has snakeheads. It sets up completely different from tidal water.
Oh God, yeah.
How you approach everything. Burke Lake in the Res sets up completely different how you fish for snakeheads there too. So I've learned how to fish those 2 different bodies of water differently. And then you have ponds in Dulles that have snakeheads. I'm not going to say any rare, but you have to figure out how to fish them too, and that's completely different. They don't just hit the frogs every time. So.
Well, yeah, and can't even count the Ashburn ponds as because it's like an aquarium, because you're dealing with snakes, and these aren't 1,000-acre ponds; they're pretty small. So you kind of hit them and leave. It's not like the Res or anything. And the Res is a whole different cat. And even talking to Steve, and I remember after doing that episode, I don't think I actually posted this message, but I was talking with Steve whenever it was about snakeheads and how deep they go, and I had a couple of people message me and be like, dude, I have caught snakehead in 15 feet of water using forward facing sonar. I thought oh, that's a bass, and you stick it and your reel explodes and you bring it to the boat. It's that was a snake. And so that just blows your mind that we don't know everything about them. They're not just in the pads, taking their breaths and that's it. They're evolving almost their strategy to survive.
Yes. And they're getting smarter. They are getting they're getting smarter every day. It's crazy. I've been kind of stalking this one in this pond, and I found him about a year ago, and I just kind of got back to him for a couple of weeks ago. But he's a smart snakehead. The forage in that pond is so vast, he's not going to hit anything fake. And the water's so clear, he could see you. It's crazy. It's so funny that how they're all different from just the bodies of water of where they're at. But yeah, it's been a learning curve for sure. This last year for sure.
And then I know the questions are starting to rack up here on YouTube and Instagram. And then if you're over on Instagram, please come on over to YouTube or Facebook because I can actually share your question on the screen. Instagram does not hook up with StreamYards. Why? Who knows? Let's see. Let me start with the newest question first. Where do I go for snakeheads from the bank, or is that some cheese and I need to get a boat from the correct battery staple 55? That's an interesting name. Lake Brittle, Burke Lake.
Yep.
I heard Lake Orange apparently has them too. Down that way, there's a bunch of little lakes like that you could probably go to. The problem is they get pressured, and these things are smart as hell. So those ponds, they're there, and there's some big ones, but they've seen so many baits.
Yes.
They've seen so many baits, man.
Yes, unfortunately, in this area at least for Virginia. So. Burke Lake is definitely, I would say, just walk around Burke Lake. There's some good videos out there to show you some good spots, and you just got to be there before anybody else is. But yeah, you could definitely catch snakeheads from that.
Yeah,
sure.
and honestly, and I know I've gotten pestered about this too. Pretty much any pond in the Northern Virginia area has a 60 to 80% chance that there's a snake in there. The problem is how many, and I think that's what it really comes down to is you could hit these. Go there when it's super calm in the evening, and you can kind of look to see if they come up and breathe. Honestly, that'd probably be your best bet versus trying to fish all day, and just check that out and come back. That's personally how I found them in the past. I think Red Rocks in Leesburg. I think that has them, but you're not allowed to fish that place anymore. You'll get in trouble.
Yeah, and fortunately, they're pretty close to each other too, so you could kind of hop around a little bit, spend an evening doing it, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
And Michael has here on Facebook, on Lake Anna last summer, the snakeheads were being caught all summer. This summer, the number dropped off in late June when the heat started. Do they go deeper with the heat like other fish? So I would really suggest you can. I've had Odenkirk on the show about 7 times a Sunday. He basically did all the biology work with them. I also had the man, the myth, the legend, the House of the Dragon himself, Steve Kambosis on, and they breathe air. So if you submerge a snakehead and they can't go up, they will actually die. So they do dive down, I think like dolphins, but they need to come back up for air. That's why in choppy conditions, my hypothesis is the bite gets wonky, is that it's harder for them to get up there and breathe with the chop on the water.
I heard you say that though. That makes plenty of sense.
It just clicked while the show was going.
Yeah. But yeah, especially in Burke Lake, they're in the shallows, but the shallow is pretty close to the deep. I mean, the deep is right there, and every once in a while you'll see them kind of come up, see you, and then come right back down. It's funny. It's very funny.
And again, I do think it's like, I think you hit it on the head, and so many other people did, where they are getting so smart of the bow fishing pressure and the pads and things like that, where I could totally see them 20 feet of water. They come up for air and they drop right back down as fast as possible because they know what boats do. And Mike, I think that, I don't know if that answers your question or not. Yes, I think they go deeper. There's also an algae bloom. There's a bad algae bloom if you're talking up at the split of Lake Anna, and I don't know how that would kind of affect those animals specifically.
I haven't been to Lake Anna in a long time, so I don't know too much about Lake Anna. I heard
they're in there, and they're getting more, especially since there's so much water willow now. It seems like wherever there's water willow or any kind of SAV, like they're going to be better off there than not. Let's see. We got Greg in the chat. Greg says, "What is your rod, reel, line setup for snakehead?"
Which one? Well, I'll bring out my main one is a Dobbins 735, if I can get it. Dobbins 735, Corrado MGL 150. You don't have to go too crazy. The Fury, I think it's $130. The one thing about that, if you break it, you could always upgrade to the Champion Series, the full cork. Those are great rods for snakeheads. That's all I always recommend. I definitely recommend a better reel than a rod. High drag for sure. You could get away with a cheaper rod than a cheaper reel, but definitely invest in a good reel. The Corrado MGLs are really good. The SLXs are really good. I'm a Shimano fanboy. I'm starting getting into Daiwa. I shouldn't say that, but Daiwa has really good stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much a Dobbin 735 is my frog rod. And then the story. You heard about me dropping a G Loomis MBR Metanium in the Potomac in Aquia. And I wasn't even I wasn't even snakehead fishing, and I wasn't even on my kayak. I was on a bass boat, and that thing just, oh my god. But that's kind of like a 7-foot medium heavy is another good just all around snakehead setup. Yeah.
You mentioned something that I would like to get into about the drag, because I do feel like some people they just lock that bitch down. And if you're a bass fisherman, this is something you do. And I have learned, if you are on places with striper and places with snakehead, you got to thread the drag a little bit, because you will break a reel or you'll lose whatever the hell you were throwing. Because a big one of either species, dude, they will strip. They will really try hard to strip you.
Yep. Definitely high drag, definitely quality reel for sure.
Yeah.
Good line. I like 50-pound on my frog rods, but normally it's 40 from everything else. But I'm just kind of coming from that frog bass fishing field of the 50-pound. And that's another thing because we were kind of talking about swim baiting, how they go so high in the pound test for swim baits. Compared to the snakehead stuff, where those guys go a little bit lower. But I guess you're throwing the bigger swim baits, I guess, right?
Well, it's also because this is 120.
Oh,
this is 220.
Yeah,
and you can see this is 13 inches. This one here is 8. Like that's why you're throwing cable. It's just so you can get your mortgage back.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it's that expensive. It's funny, we were talking about the Dreamcaster Frost, and he had tossed that clutch out there, and he didn't think twice to jump off his boat to go catch that 200 to go spin for his $250 clutch that he just snapped off. It's hilarious. Hilarious. I mean, I'd probably be doing that too, because that's
dude.
Gosh. Yeah.
There are some good ones I know, good swim bait guys that I know, and man, they'll throw that thing into a side of a dock, no issues. They don't worry about it. It's like, dude, I could not do that. I get sick to my stomach if I'm too close to something.
Coming from the snakehead stuff, you can get away with these lures, $8-9 for frogs and stuff like that. It's pretty affordable. The braid line is pretty affordable. Again, the rods are pretty affordable stuff. You could get into it for pretty affordable stuff. In the kayak too, you could get into pretty cheap kayak, man. But that swim bait stuff, this game, man, that's I got to take out my part of my mortgage for that stuff, or not tell my girlfriend about it, man. But yeah, that's another game that I'm starting to get into in a little bit. But yeah.
What got you into that? I mean, we're talking a little bit. Yeah, like we talk a little bit about off air, but is it just you had a moment of like, that looks cool?
No, so back during COVID, like even before COVID, maybe like 2008 or 2018, I had this niche of airbrushing crankbaits. So I started airbrushing crankbaits like 2019, and then COVID hit. And man, the progression of like spraying crankbaits took off. It exploded during COVID. Everybody was home spraying crankbaits and stuff like that. I got really good at that, but my issue was just finding good blanks. Like at that time, it was all knockoff stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So investing, 15, 20 minutes to spray this lure, to tune it for another 20 minutes, it just wasn't worth it. So that's when I was like, why am I trying to do these small little crankbaits when I should be getting into these, these bigger swim baits? But again, at that time, there weren't really knockoff swim baits that you could. I mean, there were, but nothing that were just of value or even worth doing. Sorry, my laptop is about to charger. So that's why I was like, all right, I got to go buy swim baits. So this is, I guess, maybe 2020 during COVID, 2021. it was like one of the very first gatherings that they had down in Richmond, and I went down there and kind of got my feet wet and picked up a couple lures and had a rod, tossed it around for a little bit, and just realized it wasn't really for me at that point in time, just because I just wasn't investing enough time into it. Because you really have to pick up a swim bait rod and really have to throw it all day. You can't just pick it up in 10 minutes or fish it for 10 minutes if you think you're going to catch a 5-10 pound bass. Like, you really got to figure out, really learn how to do that. So I just kind of put it away. And then, fast forward down, we were fishing out Mooney, and I had lost that big fish. And I was like, man, I just can't go back to just regular, conventional bass fishing. Like, I really have to step up the game to really start doing like trophy bass. And then, that's where swim bait kind of comes involved, if I'm not mistaken. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just picked up a couple new lures, a new rod that should be coming in next week. So I'll, see how that goes in a little bit, but.
Oh, that's gonna be so much fun, dude. And we got. Let's see. Ricardo says best lure for snakeheads, and it's probably a topwater bait.
Obviously topwater is the best. Is always the best and the funnest. I mean, that explosion is always the best. I'd say frog fishing for snakehead is the best, but it's probably not the most effective one. But it's the one I recommend for anybody starting off. Pick up a frog and go fish for a snakehead that way. Try to fish.
Yeah, I mean, and I think if you're going to be in snakehead fishing as guy that's caught a ton of them, sadly, as bycatch during a bass tournament, you're going to catch a lot of bass if you're looking at it from the other angle too, as bycatch. Yep. So just throw it in the same areas, get in there. I would also say like go a little bit smaller too, Ricardo. They have, I guess, mini finesse size frogs as well. Just give them a different look.
I was going to say there's a lot of local guys in our area who are starting to make dedicated snakehead lures. I mean, there's half a dozen. Tactical Fishing is a really good company. Tailored Lures is also another good one. I mean, they're specifically made for snakeheads. A little bit smaller hooks. The butts stick down into the water. They come. They're just so narrow. They come to the pads really easily. Really snagless, really good stuff. You don't have to go too far. They're right here locally. Definitely local guys.
They're really good stuff. And yeah, that's what's so interesting is like as these communities and these tribes get bigger and bigger and bigger, they create like these neat products to specifically fill that niche. And that's what's fascinating to find out is like what. So examples, I'm a novice. What is the difference between a regular frog that you buy at Bass Pro Shop and a snakehead frog? Like, what is the big difference, you think, in your opinion?
So I would say the size is a little bit smaller. The hooks are just a little bit smaller, but they're definitely stouter. I mean, yeah, smaller and stouter. And the butts tend to sit down in the water a little bit. One. I don't think I have anyone else. Let's see, let me pull one out. Oh, I'm dropping them. But you'll notice like when they're in the water, they just kind of sit like this. And as soon as that snakehead just grabs it, I mean, it's over. But just a little bit smaller than your normal. What's that guy, Jason Lee, who was crushing them a couple weeks ago in that MLF? That
Jordan Lee?
Yes, Jordan Lee. The scum. What is the name of that
Scum
frog? The scum frog.
Yeah.
That's your typical traditional bass frog. Big, 4-aught hooks. This snakehead stuff are a lot smaller. Like I said, to get smaller hooks, a little bit pointier to get into the much more smoothless to get into the pads and stuff like that. And then you have your popping versions are really popular to call them out of the pads or the arrowheads. Those are really good ones too. But I would say just a little bit smaller than your normal bass fishing.
Interesting. That's so cool. Do you think they're colorblind? Do you think they see color?
And that is a good question, but I know they could see me.
Because you watch them even on like super like slow-mo stuff where they track the frog and it's like What the hell are you looking for? What anomalies in the bait are you picking out before you make that decision?
That is a good question. I mean, I've thrown all different types of colors, and I think they all I don't really think it. I mean, I would say the color helps per condition as far as the sunlight and everything like that, but I don't really think the color really matters with them. Really, if it's visible right in front of them and they want it, they're gonna eat it. Um, Unless you finesse them, but I don't think color matters too much. Yeah.
That's really cool. What are the things in your little workshop do you like to work on? Because that you have a setup that makes me jealous.
So man, I pour like jigs. Swim jigs are my little thing. Football jigs I do. Like I said, I used to do the crankbaits. I used to spray those, but I don't do that anymore. Just because the knockoff stuff has just been hard. But yeah, this is kind of like my little workshop, man. I mean, let's see my wall, man. It's actually I got my
cool
TV up there. But I mean, this is not even half of my lure stuff. I mean, it goes on pretty far back to lures. It's pretty bad. It's
I'm
pretty
jealous.
bad. It's pretty bad. I need to go through it and start filtering out stuff that I don't use anymore. But this is just my man cave. I come out here, I do whatever I need to do in my kayak. I make lures. I try to prep for whatever I need to do, even though I don't do tournament bass fishing. But I just love, fishing in general, tinkering with other different lures. Yeah, man, just typical guy stuff, I guess.
Is there anything like you want to do outside of tournament fishing, like any goals in the fishing world?
I guess with the VKE guys, saltwater is kind of next, man. At some point, I'd love to get into that saltwater game. I see all those pics of those huge, bull reds and the sheep heads and stuff like that. I'd really love to get into that stuff, man. But I can't justify another kayak and that setup at the moment with everything I got. But definitely some saltwater stuff at some point. But next year, I definitely like to get a little bit more serious in the Snakehead, a little bit more serious in the tournament stuff, really start to focus in it. Definitely get a motor to get out a little bit further out to explore more waters. Yeah, I would definitely like to get a podium finish next year for sure.
I think you'll get there. I think you always have these like steps. These
Absolutely. I'm definitely confident in getting a tournament or a trophy in there.
It's interesting how we progress. Like every year you can watch how you build and like you don't make the same mistakes or you learned a little bit and then you have that breakout. Like I always think you have that glass ceiling where you hit the glass ceiling and it's starting to crack. And as soon as you break through, you just go parabolic with and it's anything in life, honestly.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, this season I got 6th place on the first event and then skunked out all 3 other events. And at the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get, I'm gonna make points, and then you skunk out your last 3. That's a blower. That's a blower, man. I mean, that could really damage your ego. But it's a learning lesson. You got to get back up and go back out and do it, and finish. A lot of guys don't even finish or even start. So just learning how to fail and learning your mistakes, which you did last time, and not doing that the next time is really key. And that's really key of learning and progressing, learning from your mistakes, and then keeping a good attitude with it. That's another thing. Because I mean, you'll go out on pre-fish and think you kind of have it nailed in, and then 2 days later, nada. For whatever different reasons, whatever, you can count on your hands. That's another rabbit hole in itself. But yeah, and that really will set a lot of anglers up for or I guess distinguish a lot of talented anglers also, because you have to learn how to how should I say this? I'm losing my words here. adjust, especially like we were talking about top water. If you just only fish top water all day, that's only going to work for so long. You really really have to adjust. And that was one thing I've had to learn this year too, because when I first started, last year towards the end of the season, it was all top water is it. So, coming in the beginning of the season, I really had to learn how to do subsurface stuff. And that's where I really struggled. And that's where I really learned how to, subsurface to go fish it. That was the thing. But again, I had to go out and miss or skunk out a lot and to figure that out though.
Yeah, because you gotta like, it's like with forward facing sonar, with BFS, whatever. You gotta get out there and just fish it. And again, this is not an issue, but I know people that all they do is fish tournaments all the time, 24/7.
Yeah,
they're good at it and they're fantastic. Like, there's no issue there. But for me personally, what I would have a problem with if it was me is I feel like I would get into the monotonous of doing the same thing and not experimenting because I'm in a tournament. In years past, when I didn't fish very many tournaments, I played around with my stuff. Like, oh, let's try this, let's try that.
Yeah.
We're just out here having a good time, and I learned a lot more.
Yeah.
And now that I'm fishing more kayak and boat tournaments, I feel like I start to fall back on like the damn swim jig, which I throw way too much and it's unhealthy, and just things like that, because it's like, it's a tournament. You can't go experiment. That's crazy. And yeah, I agree with you. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then, raise your hand and ask for help sometimes.
Yeah.
Talk to other guys. A lot of the guys in our scenes, they're really cool. They're really cool guys. And if you talk to them and ask them for a few tips, they're more than welcome to help you. They won't give you their secret spots, but they'll definitely, point you in the way, so definitely ask a couple guys who are, much more advanced than you. They'll definitely help you out for sure.
You got to ask the right questions. That's the biggest thing. Ask the right questions.
Yeah, so gotta ask the right questions instead of just asking for that spot or just that lure.
Yeah, because if you learn how to ask the right questions, you can help yourself out. Like, what areas do you look for? Things like that. Understand the creature you're dealing with, because if you do that, the stuff will start popping out at you and you could find it. And most people don't do that. And I don't know if it's malice or just they haven't been taught that. Like, if you want my secret spot, that's great, but do you know why it's secret? It's not just because it's never just because nobody knows about it. There's a reason the fish are there, and it's not just pressure. It's maybe it's the stump, maybe it's the SAV. There's a reason. You need to figure that out so you can find and duplicate that.
Yes. And again, they're not gonna just give it to you. And then that just goes back to time on the water. But again, with social media, Facebook, Instagram, there's a lot of good spot burning stuff out there that you get. I'm not going to say it's completely visible, but if you could research and kind of like hit that rewind a couple times, you could figure it out. You could figure some stuff out. And that's kind of how I learned a little bit too. But
Google, and I've said this a bunch on Patreon only streams. Get yourself Google Earth Pro, download it to your PC or Mac. You can go back in time like 20 years. That is how you find juice.
Just the basic fundamentals, the fundamentals of where they would start. And then you could kind of, once you find out where they start or where they're kind of conjugating, you could kind of take that to the next, body of water, that next state, template it from there. And it's kind of vast. It's, it's there to be had for sure. It's definitely there to be had.
Jimbo, what do you got coming up? You got any big tournaments? You got anything that would be fun that we could promote or let everyone know about?
Definitely my Instagram page, Jimbo Slice Beef Fishing. I'm trying to get that up and running. Jared Mons kind of inspired me to have that started. So that's been a few months in. So if you guys could help me to get the 500 subs, that's the first step. And I'll start, keep on posting a bunch of snakehead and bass and other species content. And like I said, next year, I definitely plan on coming back to VKA tournaments hard. hard for sure. But yeah.
I'll put a link. And then, as always, guys, this will be re-uploaded tomorrow morning to Apple, Spotify, iHeart, and YouTube. I'll put a link to his YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram there, so you can click and go help support him. Let's see. We got one. I'm gonna get one more question done here. As Ricardo says, Google Earth, search every pond and lake around your area. Go try them. Like, dude, yeah. I mean, that's what, because it's so you can get the education. Like, I can tell you, like, the Res, the Potomac River, Lake Brittle, those places have the highest concentration. Some of these ponds that we're talking about, I don't think they have a huge concentration of them, so they are pressured. They're there and they're big, but it's hard. Lake Brittle's got a huge concentration. The Res does, and Burke. So that gives you that gives you the probability of running into one. And the Potomac, for God's sakes, like there's a ton there. You just got to go get out there and do that.
Go bass fishing.
And the C&O Canal. So parts of the C&O Canal have them as well, and that's. Get a bike and just you got to pedal. But really, from Algonquin down that area, those pools on the canal, there are some snakehead there, but they're very temperamental to the weather.
So, 4 Mile Run is also another good spot.
Yep.
They're all up in there, and that just is a vast body of canals in itself. Yeah.
Yep. Go up to Baltimore. Any of those like places underneath the highways that just never dry up. There are snakes in there. They're hard to get to, and you might have to go bounce across a meth head, but you'll find snakes there that haven't been touched. Like, there's all those little areas in Urbania that you can go to. But again, that's why I say, like, you go on Google Earth to see which ones you can get to if you want to find your own like secret little honey hole there. But yeah, I mean, dude, I really, this was a lot of fun. I always enjoy learning about the snakehead culture and how much this is blowing up in our area. We talked to Steve about that a week ago, and this is going to become big. This is a good one. Any snakeheads over 20 pounds yet in VA, Maryland? Where do you think the record will be broken, Maryland or Virginia?
I think Virginia is going to do it.
Yep.
Maryland produces a whole lot of snakeheads. I mean, you could go out there and catch 4 or 5 snakeheads in a day, but Virginia, the quantity is a lot less, but the quality, man. And some of the waters are just not tapped over here or known about just yet. So I think, Virginia is going to be it. And it's funny, when you look at the Facebook pages for Virginia and Maryland, man, it's such a night and day how Virginia and Maryland treat the snakehead, thing. Like you said, in Maryland, man, it's kill on sight. As many snake as you can, kill on sight. In Virginia, man, they're like, hey, I caught a snakehead. This and that, and it's just like kind of like a fun experience. It's kind of crazy how the two different states are very, very divided like that.
And it's a fascinating,
not to even mention the bow fishing side of it too.
Yeah.
We kind of talked a little about that, how there's a big rift between the states and stuff like that too. But
and that's a fascinating case study to me when it comes to society, where you're promoting a species and you're getting more people to be hooked on the species because you're trying to get them out there. But what you end up doing is you also create the culture of catching snakehead, and that's a byproduct of promoting them. Correct. And because of that, for every 2, if you have 5 people, for every 2 that say like, I'm going to actually catch and kill all the snakehead, you might be creating 3 passionate snakehead anglers that want to conserve them. And so what will happen in 10 years, 20 years? Because I'm trying to get a bow fishing organization. I'll come on and talk about it. But I had a bow guy offline say, we don't want to kill all of them, because if we kill all the snakehead, no one's going to come out and bow fish snakehead. So even they're like, we want to conserve them.
So with my Instagram account, like if you notice, a lot of them are just to catch and release reels. I've actually been getting a lot of views on those. That's kind of funny. But I get a lot of comments, a lot of negative comments. Why are you releasing that? That's an invasive, this, and that. And technically, it's our job to educate these people. Mm-hmm. You really got to educate them as best as possible. Yes, it's invasive, but no, you don't have to kill them. You could release them back into the public waters and caught them. You just have to educate people. And I think a lot of the VA side does that. I think there's a lot of education in the VA side. I'm not saying Maryland isn't, but I think I'm not sure what it is with the Virginia side, but I think we just kind of hold it to our hearts a little bit compared, to Maryland. Not knocking anything for Maryland or anything like that.
Not all invasives are created equal.
Correct.
And again, this is a whole other conversation we could go down, which is fascinating about when it becomes a cultural. It's in the cultural zeitgeist. Like the snakehead is more in the cultural zeitgeist than the blue cat is. 100%. I would bet house money on that. It got more people into angling. Especially, you had this perfect world of the snakehead, the COVID, and kayaking all blowing up at the same time.
Yep.
I just personally, and it could be that I'm not at the pulse of the blue cats, but it didn't have that same pop. It really didn't.
No, you're right. It didn't, and I'm not sure what it is. Because catfish get huge. They get massive, man, and that fight, what I've seen, is pretty massive too. But I'm not sure what it is. I think it is with snakeheads. It's so hard. It's such a rarity in itself compared to the catfish stuff. But
Top water biting.
yeah, the subsurface stuff.
Subsurface. They look cool. They're aesthetically pleasing.
Sight fishing for them is fun when you can kind of sight fish for them. Yeah, man. And then again, once you get them in the kayak or the boat, just dealing with them is an experience in itself with all the teeth and everything like that. So it's just one of a kind. One of a kind.
Yeah, it really is. Dude, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. As always, guys, link in the episode description to everything that we talked about. This coming Saturday, I think it is. I should have this memorized because I'm putting the thing on. But it's, August 17th at 6 p.m. at Jake's Bait and Tackle. If you are a Patreon member, come on in. We're having a Patreon members meet and greet. This is a beta test. This is the light version. We are going to be having a massive, big Patreon meetup, hopefully late August, November. I'm getting Captain Steve Chaconis, Jeff Green, Travis Eden. We're doing all the rivers, including the tidal Potomac River. That'll be coming late fall, but right now this is just a little say thank you. I'm going to provide food. Everything's free of charge. Come on by, say hi, just chill, talk fishing. Like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by